Hi, I'm JK Miramon, and I will tackle today the Module 2, which is the Lesson 2, the history of philosophy and objectives of imprisonment and the development of prisons, the Sing Sing prison, the Uburn system, Pennsylvania system, the five development of prisoners and the forms of punishment, the age of enlightenment, personalities behind correctional institutions with Cesar Vicaria, Cesar Marquez of Barcaria Bonicia, Cesar Lombroso, William the Conqueror, Enrico Ferri, and the Clifford Shaw. Discussion: Sing Sing Prison. This is the picture of the Sing Sing Prison, which located in the Ossining, New York. First, the alcohol and substance abuse treatment programs, anger management programs, educational and vocational programs, family development programs, guidance and counseling services, library and law library services, recreational programs, religious services, sex offender treatment programs, temporary release programs, trauma programs, transitional services programs, and veterans services. These these words that I mentioned will will have a discussion. First, the volunteer services and programs. Sing Sing involves Sing Sing Correctional Facility is a maximum security prison located in Ossining, New York. The Ossining prison is located in New York, which located in Ossining, New York. In use, and it is since 1826. It is one of the oldest penal institutions in the United States. It is also among the most well-known in the country, especially notable for its harsh conditions in the 19th and 20th century. The Ossining, New York, which located the prison of Sing Sing, and it is it is well known in the country, especially in 19th and 20th century. This is the picture of prison of Sing Sing Prison. The Sing Sing Prison on Hudson River at Ossining, New York, is originally known as the Mount Pleasant Prison. It was constructed in the village of Sing Sing on the east bank of the Hudson River, some 30 miles or 48 kilometers north of New York City. It was designed to provide additional prison space and to replace Newgate Prison. Construction was undertaken in 1885 by convict laborers under the supervision of Elam Lins, warden of Uburn State Prison. The Sing Sing Prison is originally known as the Mount Pleasant Prison, and it was constructed in the village of Sing Sing in the east bank of Hudson River. So the the construction of Sing Sing Prison was undertaken by the convict laborers or the mga pineriso, and under the supervision of Elam Lins. So Elam Lins was the warden of the Uburn State Prison, and he officially became the head of the new prison when it opened in 1826, but it was not completed until 1828. The initial facility had 800 cells. The prison population rose in the mid-19th century, resulting in more construction. The four-story complex was soon 6 stories, and the prison eventually housed more than 1,600 inmates. Because most of the early convicted criminals traveled by boat to Sing Sing, the phrase up the river came to the mean of going to prison. One of the notable visitors to the prison was Alexis de Tocqueville, the author of The Democracy in America. The French government sent him and Gustave Beaumont to the United States in 1831 to gather information about the American penal system. The two men were amazed in the total subjugation under which prisoners work and the administrative power the warden wielded at Sing Sing. Lins resigned as warden of Sing Sing in 1830 and returned to Uburn in 1838. He was asked to leave that prison a year later after the death of the prisoner who was punished severely for feigning illness. Despite this record, Sing Sing rehired Lins. And while Lins was resigned and go to the newborn prison, the warden of the Sing Sing prison was died because of the finding illness. So in this year, William Lins also rehired in 1843. Whippings and floggings were commonplace punishments at Sing Sing, frequently used as the cat o' nine tails, a cruel whipping contraption whose lashes were often tipped with a metal or barbs. Its use was finally abolished by the New York State. New York State. The number one punishment in the Sing Sing prison, which is the whippings and the floggings, were commonplace punishment at Sing Sing. So in whippings and floggings, it also called the cat o' nine tails, which in the tip of the tip of the cat o' nine tails were tipped with metal or barbs. It is the it is the punishment of the Sing Sing prison. Lister in 1848. In addition, while Lins was a warden, inmates were expected to refrain from making noise, which included talking. With the advent of the electric chair in 1891, Sing Sing became notorious of its executions. Although the electric chair was developed at neighboring Newborn, almost all executions within the state were carried out at Sing Sing until 1963. The infamous death chair was later moved to Green Haven Prison. Sing Sing was also the site of reforms that affected the national penal system. Reformer Thomas Mott Osborne, who developed his penology theories while voluntarily incarcerated for a year at Newborn, served as Sing Sing's warden in 1914 to 1915 and 1916. But his immediate sweeping were assailed and he resigned under the intense political pressure. During his tenure, however, his first psychological work with inmates began. More reforms were instituted under Louis Edward Laws, who served as warden from 1920 to 1941. He notably was a warden from 1920 to 1941 and improved the living conditions within the prison and allowed inmates to participate in sports. So this is the prison or the jail of Sing Sing prison with Osborne Thomas Moth. The Thomas Moth Urban is the right warden from 1914 to 1915 and 1916 of Sing Sing prison. And it is a library of Congress, Washington, D.C. Is from the right is Thomas Moth Osborne. And this is the Sing Sing prison cell. This is a picture of Sing Sing prison cell. This is the picture. So, as you can see, there are in his length of his cell. This is very small. So one person in each cell. Sing Sing prison cell. A cell at Sing Sing prison in New York in 1910 to 1915. A library of Congress, Washington, D.C. In 1901, the residents of Sing Sing Village changed its name to Sining. They wanted to distance, if not dissociate, the town from the notorious prison. For that the same reason, in 1970, the state renamed the prison to Sining Correctional Facility. In 1901, the residents of Sing Sing Village changed its name to Sining. So in 1901, the village of the Sing Sing, the village of the Sining changed the prison into as Osining, which is the reason in 1970 the state renamed the prison to Sining Correctional Facility. So in the Newborn State Prison located in Newborn, New York, opened in 1816 and it established a disciplinary and administrative system based on silence, corporal punishment, and congregate, or a group. In architecture and routine, Newborn became the model for the prisons throughout the United States. In the early 19th century, many Americans believed that industrialization and dramatic demographic, economic, and political upheavals had conspired against the traditional controls of family, church, and community. From their perspective, these moral guardians could not no longer adequately control disorder. They saw crime as the product of social chaos. Necessary to its eradication was a structured environment in which deviants could be separated from the disorder of society and the contagion of the one another. Newborn originally used to congregate cells, but in 1821, Warden William Britton borrowed the concept of solitary cells from the so-called Pennsylvania system. Britton designed a unique five-tiered cell block of two rows of single cells, placed back-to-back in the center of the buildings. Cells measured only 3.5 feet, 1.6 meters wide, 7.5 feet, 2.3 meters long, and 2.1 meters high. Doorways outer walls lined with gratted windows that provided indirect light and air. A hidden passageway with small openings surrounded the work area, allowing inspectors and visitors to separately monitor the inmates. Newborn briefly in 1821 to 1825 implemented a three-level classification system which, under it, manner of vendors, billboard, and workshops during the day and retired to separate cells at night. Serious offenders alternated their days between solitary confinement and congregate work. The most hardened criminals were placed in the solitary confinement without work. After numerous suicides, instances of mental illness, and attempted escapes, the governor of New York terminated the classification of system and the experiment in solitary confinement. Subsequently, all male inmates worked in congregate shops by day, returning to the individual cells at night, while the females first committed to Newborn in 1895 were relegated to the attic and excluded from the regular work and exercise. To ensure that inmates did not corrupt one another, Britain's successor Elam Lins enforced a quasi-military routine of absolute silence, strict discipline, and economic productivity. In response to Bell's head-shaven inmates dressed in stripped clothing silently marched in lockstep permission to end their cells for meals and work assignments. Eventually, overcrowding made the silent system unenforceable. A newborn system of discipline deteriorated into corrupt and lax routines of harsh punishments. After the Civil War, the spirit of reform withered. The contract labor was no longer profitable. Unlike Auburn of Sing Sing, Pennsylvania Eastern Penitentiary in 1829 was intended to keep convicts separate even as they worked, in order to prevent unearthly contamination or destruction that might impede their repentance. Hence, the term penitentiary located on Cherry Hill on the outskirts of Philadelphia. Eastern represented one of the most imposing and expensive architectural achievements in the United States to date, and it contained innovations such as running water and flush toilets in the cells. Although Beaumont and Tocqueville found it uncontestable that this perfect isolation secures the prisoner from all fatal contamination, they favored the more cost-effective Newborn plan, which seemed more likely to enable states to profit from convict labor. The Pennsylvania system, penal method based on the principle that solitary confinement fosters penitence and encourages the reformation. The idea was advocated by the Philadelphia Society for alleviating the miseries of public prisons, whose most active members were Quakers. In 1829, the Eastern State Penitentiary on Cherry Hill in Philadelphia applied this so-called separate philosophy. Prisoners were kept in solitary confinement in cells 16 feet, nearly 12 feet long, and 7.5 feet wide, 4.9 by 3.7 by 2.3. The different types of criminal punishment. The following are five of the most commonly seen types of criminal punishment. The incapacitation. The incapacitation seeks to prevent future crime by physically moving criminals away from society. In incapacitation, the main purpose of this is to seek to prevent future crime by physically moving criminals away from society. This punishment can be traced to ancient times. Terence Smith and Hong Lu write in Punishment, a comparative historical perspective, banishment was a common penalty in antiquity. Later, It was common for colonizing European countries to ship convicts and undesirables overseas. In modern times, house arrest, incarceration, and the death penalty are all forms of incapacitation. So, they in the modern days, incapacitation, the most common most common incapacitation type is house arrest, incarceration, and the death penalty are all forms of incapacitation. So, findings of the Bureau of Justice Statistics or BGS have brought the effectiveness of this method into question. According to BGS, data about two-thirds of 67.8% of prisoners released back into society. So, it's were arrested for a new crime within 3 years. And about three-quarters, 76.6% were arrested within 5 years. Despite these findings, incapacitation is common form of punishment in the United States. What is deterrence? Deterrence is the goal of the goal of deterrence is to persuade citizens and possible offenders or reoffenders to conform to the rules of law. Myth and the law explain that four types of deterrence are generally recognized. The four types of deterrence are: 1. Specific deterrence analyzes how effective punishment is on an individual's future behavior. So the first deterrence is the specific deterrence analysis how effective punishment of an individual's future behavior. So second is the general deterrence seeks to understand how individual punishment can deter others from committing crimes. So in the third, marginal deterrence seeks to reconcile how effective different types of punishment are as either specific or general deterrence. So in the fourth is the partial deterrence refers to the situations in which the threat of penalty has some deterrent value even when someone engages into illegal behavior. For example, a criminal simply robbing a victim instead of also causing physical harm. The effectiveness of deterrence as a criminal punishment is difficult to assess because people may follow the law for other reasons that may be challenging to track, such as religious or moral beliefs, physical incapacitation, or lack of opportunity. Retribution. As one of the oldest forms of punishment, retribution has roots in the Judeo-Christian traditions of justice. In her book Criminal Law, Lisa M. Storm explains that retribution prevents crime by giving victims or society a certain sense of satisfaction that a defendant has been punished appropriately, reinforcing the beliefs that the criminal justice system is working effectively. The modern examples of retribution include the widespread practices of imposing fines, as well as enforcing mandatory and sentencing policies for certain offenses under the law. As an effective punishment, retribution has been criticized as being overly rigid and limited in its capacity to change societal behavior. However, it remains popular. Rehabilitation. A common prison policy in America up until the 1970s. Rehabilitation focuses on helping criminals and prisoners overcome the barriers that lead them to committing criminal acts. This includes developing occupational skills as well as resolving psychological issues, so such as drugs, addiction, and aggression. Explains that American Psychological Association it is considered the opposite of retribution. So rehabilitation is an opposite of retribution. It is the ultimate purpose of rehabilitation is reports that examining massive data, individualized approaches to crime, complemented with community-based approaches, can prove effective in reducing offender and recidivism. The fourth is restoration, a radically different approach to criminal punishment. So the goal of restoration is for the offender to make direct amends to both the victim and the community, so in which the crime was committed. Although a relatively new practice in modern times, the concept of restorative justice can be found in the earliest legal systems of Western Europe. It's in the ancient times, Hebrew justice, and pre-colonial African societies. During the process of restoration, Victims initiate a process in which they both and the offender meet to share feelings and concerns. The dialogue offers victims the opportunity to be heard, the offenders to make amends and receive forgiveness. Restorative justice is often used in crimes involving youth offenders. The Age of Enlightenment. Personalities behind correctional institutions. First is the Cesar Beccaria, in full Cesar Bunisana Marquis de Beccaria. He was born on March 15, 1738 in Milan, Italy. He died on November 28, 1794 in Milan. Beccaria was an Italian criminologist and economist who was the delegate of a Delle Peni, on 1764, or English trans of Horror, Crimes and Punishment in 1880, was a celebrated volume on the reform of criminal justice. Beccaria was the son of Milanese aristocrat and a modest means. From an early age, he displayed the essential traits of his character. A highly volatile temperament resulted in periods of enthusiasm followed by depression and inactivity. He was reserved and somewhat taciturn in his social contacts, but placed great value on his personal and family relationships. At the age of 8, he was sent to the Jesuit school in Parma. Beccaria later described the education he received there as a fanatical and stifling too. The development of human feelings, although he revealed a mathematical aptitude, little in his student, this give indication of the remarkable intellectual achievements that were soon to follow. In 1758, he received a degree in law from the University of Pavia. In 1760, Beccaria proposed a marriage to the 16-year-old Teresa Blasco. He encountered the obdurate opposition of his father. The following year, the marriage took place without parental consent, and the young couple began their life together in poverty. The breach between father and his son was ultimately repaired, and Beccaria and his wife were received into the family home. In 1762, a daughter, the first of the three children, was born. This is the picture of Cesar Beccaria, and the next is Marquess of Beccaria of Bonicia, or Beccaria Cesar Bunisana, Marquis of 1738 to 1794. He is an Italian economist and proponent of judicial reform, so Cesar Beccaria was the author of the most famous Italian work of the Enlightenment on crimes and punishments in 1764. He was born into the noble family of the estate of the Milan, which was part of the Austrian Habsburg Empire, and was schooled by the Jesuits in Parma. From the University of Pavia in 1758, and returned to Milan. Beccaria's 20s were the most important decade in his intellectual and emotional life. He was temperamentally inclined to lethargy and anxiety, but when young, could also be galvanized by inspiration and express his feelings in the language of Rasu. He married his first wife in 1761 against a strong resistance from his family, and wrote on crimes and punishment on 1763. When he was 25, his friendship with Pietro Verri, 1720 to 1797, and other ardent young Milanese reformers did not. However, at last the 1760s were in their eyes, he seemed to lose all of his vitality and to settle to an arid and routine private life, which nevertheless allowed him to hold his melancholy at bay. Beccaria himself dated his discovery of the Enlightenment on 1761, when he began to read the works of the French and Scottish philosophists and discuss them with a circle of young friends led by Pietro Verri. In all the provinces of the Austrian Empire, including Milan, absolutist reforms emanating from Vienna continued to encounter entrenched resistance from noble and ecclesiastical corporations and from the jurisdictional culture of the ancient regime. Very and Beccaria and their cohort wishes to modernize and rationalize the economy and the legal system in line with Enlightenment secular morality and the supported government's reform on crimes and punishments and was first published in 1764 with subsequent editions following rapidly. Beccaria prepared the edition now regarded as definitive in 1766. The work became known in France through the translation of André Morelet to 1727 to 1819, who fairly altered the Italian text. Beccaria for some reason never protested against this, and then it spread throughout Europe. On Crimes and Punishments combines elements from social contract theory with utilitarian positions. It touches on many aspects of law and justice in rapid, impassioned style, completely abjuring legal technicalities. Criminal law ought to state clearly that is forbidden and what the penalties are and ought to be applied uniformly to all. He argued against the use of torture and the gathering of evidence, highlighting its absurdity and against the death penalty, in emphasizing its failure to deter the trust of the work as to guarantee the individual citizen against the arbitrariness, delay, secrecy, and useless and excessive violence in the on codification of law and the applications of the penal sanctions. This is a picture of Cesar Beccaria. Next is Cesar Lombroso. Cesar Lombroso, described as the father of modern criminology. Cesar Lombroso's theory of the born criminal dominated the thinking about criminal the behavior in the late 19th and the 20th century. He was born on November 6, 1835 and died on October 19, 1909. Was the founder of the Italian school of positivist criminology. He rejected the established of classical school, which held that crime was a characteristic trait of human nature, and that irrational choices were the foundation of the behavior. Lombroso's using a scientific approach and concepts drawn from the psychonomy, early eugenics, psychiatry, and social Darwinism. He argued that criminality was inherited and that the born criminal could be identified by physical defects which confirm as criminal savage or atavistic, while his particular identifying characteristics are no longer considered valid. The idea of factors that predispose certain individuals to commit crime continues to the foundational to work in criminology. Together with this emphasis on the scientific method, this revolutionary approach has earned Lombroso the title the father of scientific criminology. This is the picture of Cesar Lombroso. William the Conqueror. William the First, by name William the Conqueror or William the Bastard or William or Normandy, French Guillaume le Conquérant or Guillaume le Bartad or Guillaume de Normandy. Born on 1028, Palaisie, Normandy, France, and died on September 9, 1087. Duke of Normandy as William II from 1035 and King of England as William from 1066. One of the greatest soldiers and rulers of the Middle Ages, he made himself the mightiest noble in France and then changed the course of England's history by conquest of that country. This is the next is Enrico Ferri. Enrico Ferri was born in Lombardy in 1856 and worked first as a lecturer and later as a professor of criminal law. Having spent time as a professor of criminal law and a student of Cesar Lombroso, while Lombroso researched anthropological criminology, Enrico Ferri focuses more on social and economic influences on the criminal rights. Ferri's research led to him to postulating the theories calling for crime prevention methods to be the mainstay of law enforcement, as opposed to punishment of criminals after their crimes had taken place. He became a founder of that positivist school, and his research psychological and social positivism as opposed to biological positivism of Lombroso. This is a picture of Enrico Ferri. Ferri at that time radically was elected to Italian parliament in 1886. In 1893, he joined the Italian Socialist Party and edited their daily newspaper, The Avanti. In 1900s, in 19, to 1984, he spoke out in Congress against the rules on socialist ministers and bourgeoisie governments. Ferri favored the Italian neutrality during the World War I, and he was re-elected as a Socialist Party deputy in 1921. In post-war Italy became the supporter of Mussolini's fascist regime. Ferri died in 1929. Next is Clifford Shaw. Clifford Rob Shaw was born in 1835 and died in 1957. He was an American sociologist and criminologist. He was a major figure in the Chicago School of Sociology during the 1930s and 1940s and is considered to be one of the most influential figures in the American criminology. His work on juvenile delinquency with Henry D. Mackay, conducted in the late 1920s, played a pivotal role in moving the study of such delinquency toward the discipline of sociology and away from psychology and psychiatry. This is the picture of Clifford Shaw. Shaws in Mackay's work span three general areas, studying geographic variations in the rates of juvenile delinquency, study of autobiographical works by delinquents, and the development of the Chicago Area Project, a delinquency prevention program in Chicago area. The two studies published by Shaw and Mackay in the 1930s and 1940s and were still held in high regard among social scientists in the 1970s. Anger management programs. What is anger? Anger is an emotion characterized by antagonism towards someone or something you feel has deliberately done you wrong. Anger can be a good thing. It can give you a way to express negative feelings, for example, or motivate you to find solutions to problems, but excessive anger can cause problems. Management. It is a set of principles relating to the functions of planning, organizing, directing, and controlling, and the application of these principles is harnessing physical, financial, human, and informational resources efficiently and effectively to achieve organizational goals. Anger management program is an act, way, or process in which it talks, facilitate, or control about the angerness of a person. It gives knowledge to a person about angerness and how we control about it, so that we can't harm or hurt other people. One of these is that other people talk counseling by the professionals like teachers, doctors, and others. Guidance and counseling services. Counseling. The process of assisting and guiding clients, especially by a trained person on a professional basis, to resolve and especially personal, social, and psychological problems and difficulties. Guidance. Advice or information aimed at resolving a problem or difficulty, especially as given by someone in authority. The term information, guidance, and counseling services refers to services intended to assist individuals of any age and at any point throughout their lives, to make educational training and career choices and to manage their careers. It includes a wide range of activities. What is religious services? Religious services is the act of public worship following prescribed rules. The Sunday service, divine service, religious ceremony, religious ritual, a ceremony having religious meanings, or church service, a service conducted in a house or a worship. This is example of religious services. And the third is the trauma programs. Trauma is an emotional response to a terrible event like an accident, rape, or natural disaster. Immediately after the event, shock and denial are typical. Longer-term reactions include unpredictable emotions, flashbacks, strained relationships, and even physical symptoms like headaches or nausea. There are three main types of trauma: the acute, chronic, and the complex. Acute trauma results from a single incident. Chronic trauma is repeated and prolonged, such as domestic violence or abuse. Complex trauma is exposure to varied and multiple traumatic events, often of an invasive interpersonal nature. Trauma programs is a movement that helps people who has trauma to help the patient from suffering of the intense effect of trauma. It is the example of the trauma programs which the counselor and the county one. Next is the temporary release programs. Temporary release means that you are released from a prison for a specified period of time for a specific purpose or reason. So temporary release programs refers to programs which allow release of a prisoner from a place of his or her imprisonment for a limited period. It helps in the transition of prisoners from prison to the community. Recreational programs. Recreation or the activity done for enjoyment when one is not working. Athletic and recreational facilities. It refers to all those activities that people choose to do refresh their bodies and their minds and make their leisure time more interesting and enjoyable. Examples of these types of programs include recreational sports, leagues and ballroom, dancing classes, cards clubs, neighborhood festivals, and local theater groups, and etc. This is an example of recreational programs. Educational and vocational programs. Vocational education is the training in skills and teaching of knowledge related to a specific trade, occupation, or vocation in which the student or employee wishes to participate. The educational programs is a program written by the institution of Ministry of Education which determines the learning progress of each subject in all the stages of formal education. This is an example of educational programs. Next is the sex offender treatment program. A sex offender or sexual offender, sex abuser or sexual abuser is a person who has committed a sex crime. Sex offender treatment program is SOTP consists of 18-month intensive treatment program in a therapeutic community environment that allow inmates immediate feedback about their behavior and treatment progress. SOTP 18 and the 9-month moderate intensity program is to assess sex offenders determined to pose a higher and more moderate to reoffense risk, respectively. The programs involve three treatment phases employing a cognitive behavioral model. The primary goal of the program is to reduce the rate of reoffense and move the participants toward a more pro-social lifestyle. The most effective treatment for sex offenders. Although there is some debate regarding whether treatment with sexual offenders is effective, cognitive behavioral treatment remains the most widely accepted and empirically supported model of sexual offender treatment with respect of reducing recidivism. Veteran services. The term veteran means to a person who served in active military or naval or air service and who was discharged or released therefrom or under conditions other than dishonorable. A veteran is a person who has a significant experience and expertise in a particular occupation or field. A military veteran is a person who is no longer serving in the military. A military veteran that has served directly in combat in a war is further defined as a war veteran. Next is the volunteer services and the programs. There are types of volunteer programs. The agriculture work, it might be a rural community farming and permaculture project. Children and youth, community development, education, environment, health, wildlife protection, and women's empowerment. So, in a volunteer program is a systematized way of preparing for recruiting, training, supervising, and thanking volunteers so that it's easy for people to volunteer for your non-profit and you get the help needed. The family development programs. The family development programs promotes the importance of building a strong foundation and an early learning that begins by entering each family's home, culture, and first language. We recognize strengths every child and their family bring to educational success. So the family development program integrates learning opportunities for teachers and parents, along with others who care about their children. That is deeply rooted in each child's unique cultural heritage. We work to build a common language of how you young learn that is well informed by state-of-the-art research in child development. The Family Development Program assures that the highest quality child development knowledge is accessible to all families and early childhood professionals. We collaborate with state and local initiatives to strategically meet shared goals for high quality and early learning. The Family Development Program advocates for the importance of play in early education. We marvel at the children's tenacity to discover, explore, experiment, and figure things out as core skills for lifelong learning. We see children's natural delight in learning as a solid foundation for educational success. The Family Development Program believes that partnerships which are earnestly built between families, early learning programs, schools, and community sources are vital. We cultivate bridge building to strengthen resources so that our children have comprehensive community support. The Family Development Program advocates for our understanding that all children are born learning. We are committed to build child-centered educational systems and that honor this fact. We support the need to reform and align the continuum of early learning to public school education. The Family Development Program stands for the rights of young children and their families to live in communities that place concern for children's health, well-being, and high-quality education at the center of our civic agenda. What is transitional services programs? Transition services are defined as educational activities and supports designed to assist students with disabilities to reach measurable post-secondary goals. The determination of specific transition services needs systems are from individual results for various age appropriate transitions and assessments. Transition services means a coordinated set of activities for a student with a disability, designed within results-oriented processes that is focused on improving the academic and functional achievements of the student with a disability to facilitate the student's movement from school to post-school activities. Transition-related services examples are employment, customized employment, military self-employed or family business, college militaries, church mission, vocational training program, apprenticeship, internship, paid or unpaid, that on-the-job training or job corps, alcohol and substance abuse treatment programs. What is alcohol? Alcohol is the colorless, volatile, flammable liquid that is produced by natural fermentation or sugars is an intoxicating constituent of the wine, beer, spirits, and other drinks, and is also used as an industrial solvent and as fuels. The types of substance abuse treatment programs. The alcohol and drug addiction treatment programs can take different forms and last different lengths of time depending on the level of care and the recovery needs. Different factors are taken into account when determining the right of type program of our person, but it's important to find a program that offers treatment that's tailored to the individual's needs. These factors can include the substances being used, how long a person has struggled with substance use, individual physical and mental health needs, including any co-occurring psychiatric disorders such as depression, anxiety, or bipolar disorder, occupation, work-life issues, living situation, other social factors such as relationship or family concerns. Tough, it is an important element of many people's recovery. Treatment is not just a matter of stopping drug or alcohol use with the help of detox and withdrawal management. It's also about learning to maintain sobriety and developing skills so you can lead a happier, healthier, and more productive life in society and home. Drug treatment often starts with a period of supervised and sometimes medically managed detox. It is then followed by additional rehabilitation efforts in either an inpatient or outpatient programs. Altered mental status, hallucinations, insomnia, increasing anxiety, and panic, exaggerated dependent reflexes, seizures, elevated temperature above 100, withdrawal from certain substances, alcohol, opioids, CNS, depressants can be very unpleasant and in some cases. Dangerous medical detox can help keep people as safe and comfortable as possible during the withdrawal. For those and all types of substances, depending on your withdrawal management needs, detox can take place in both inpatient and outpatient setting. The types of substance abuse interventions you receive depend on the level of care and setting. And rehab. Inpatient treatment is a form of residential rehab, meaning that you live in the facility for the duration of your treatment period. Inpatient treatment programs provide round-the-clock supervision and care and commonly incorporate a wide range of therapies. It may help lessen the distraction of the daily life so you can better focus on your recovery. People may enter short or long-term programs that can last anywhere from a few weeks to months depending on the level of care needed.